Okay, we're going to probably go about an hour, and if we can, we'll end at least a few minutes early. It'll depend on how many questions you guys have. But during the break, keeping my fingers crossed, I did a switch, or as my dad used to say, switcheroo of the files, and that sometimes gets tricky on Zoom. But I think it's, with any luck, yes, it will be fine. Here we go. But I need to know that you guys can hear me, and I'm going to now get this image up to the maximum. It's the first must know for tonight. Well, the first one for prehistoric art. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. This is an important. I will give you guys always throughout the entire semester in each of these topics, each of these lectures, a heads up when a slide is on the screen about to, before I give you the meaning and everything, which is so important that I will definitely not cut it from the study list. When we do the review, I'm going to cut. You see, I put it in writing so you can count on my fulfilling this promise to cut at least 40%, maybe more, of the slides from each half of the syllabus before the midterm. We'll do that together when we review for the midterm, and then again before the final. But this is one of those I'm not going to cut. It's a really important slide. Let's see. Is this 3 more people? Yeah. Okay. There we go. Hopefully that, yeah, there we go. So this is one you really want. In other words, what does that mean to you? It means you should take extra careful notes. And maybe if you have a little symbol of, like a star or check or an X or whatever next to those slides, when I tell you that this is one that is really important, I'm not cutting it, then you want to make sure you study those extra carefully before each of the 2 tests. Okay, so this is one of those slides. It's the Hall of Bulls, plural, right? The Hall of Bulls at Lasko. That's the title. Because there's a whole bunch of paintings with that title, but only this one is the one in the city of Lasko. It's in France. It's outside the town. And I'll spell Lasko, Lascaux. Location, we usually just give you the country, France. Now, I'll give you a break on dates. I've said this already. We're still in such early period, prehistoric time, when there's no exact year. We don't know the exact year this is painted. It could have taken several years. We don't know. No records, no written records. See, so we round the date off. But if any date is not exact, and you see the little c, you notice that some of you know this means circa. It's Italian for about or around. You don't have to remember that if it's on the exam. You can just write the date, which is already rounded, 15,000 BC. By the way, BC and BCE or CE and AD are in this class equally acceptable. And I will tell you now, if you travel around the world, most of the world still uses, just because it's a common denominator, AD and BC. But you can use CE or BCE if you prefer, or C, yeah, there we go. I'm writing it the way it traditionally would have been, and in most parts of the world still is, meaning before the Common Era, obviously. So what does that mean? It's about 17,000 years old. Okay, so what does that make this? Let's start out with the first thing for the meaning, and then I'll give you the first definition for tonight. These definitions tonight aren't that long. Some of them later on will get a little bit longer. Okay, so this is a prehistoric cave painting. Hang on, I think I see. Okay, if people want in, that usually comes as a drop-down list, and then I will let them in. Okay, so I'll say it again. This is a prehistoric cave painting. It's part of a series of cave paintings in southern France. That's the first fact about the meaning, or the first 2 facts. Okay, it's a prehistoric cave painting, and it's part of a series of such paintings in southern France, in caves, of course, in southern France. What does the word prehistoric mean? There's that first definition for tonight. It's pretty simple. Prehistoric is that period in any culture's history before written records were kept. I'll repeat that. It's that period in any culture's history before written records were kept, period. Every culture on the face of the earth has had a prehistoric phase. Can anybody think of any cultures that are prehistoric today? And this is not any kind of judgment here. It's nothing to do about better or worse. It's just the way people keep records or don't in some ways. Anybody think of any culture?
The indigenous peoples of Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, that's right. Aboriginal cultures, some, not many, but some tribes in Africa still don't write down things. They have oral traditions and they do record things and they have historians, right? But they do it differently. And then the Inuit culture, which we used to call Eskimos, I'm still, from that generation where everyone north of Alaska was called, lived up that far near the Arctic Circle. Inuit, or if you prefer, you can say Arctic peoples. The Lapps, there are some prehistoric cultures in Europe too. Lapps, my first girlfriend was from Finland and she used to talk about the Lapps. Yeah, they're a very interesting culture. They're nomadic and they don't have any permanent cities. So we don't need to see me. So I'm going to try to get rid of this. I can never remember how to do that when it gets up in the screen. So let's just. All right, I'm going to have to do this two ways. It's going to take a minute, not a minute. Back to screen share and back to the image, and it should come in. There it goes, full screen. All right, and then I can hide this here. All right. You guys don't mind if I hide your thumbnails, right? All right, I think I got cut off the last sentence. There are lots of prehistoric cultures in the world today, but you don't need to write that because it's just a point of reference. This is a prehistoric cave painting. What is it about? Well, the other facts about the meaning are what we think the purpose is. Just say many historians, always keep it simple because there's disputes on almost every fact about history we know. But this is one where a majority of historians, you could say, or most historians believe that this is a hunting ritual painting. A hunting ritual painting. Now, what does that mean? This would mean that a shaman, right? A shaman would be, and that's not a definition that, I'll wait because it's temporarily, yeah, there we go. Okay, a shaman or holy person. They were often men, but not only. So you can say holy man or woman or shaman. Don't ask me to spell it, just the way it sounds with a SH. A shaman or holy person might have either painted this for this tribe or directed members of this tribe to paint it in order to guarantee a successful hunt of these animals. It's pretty straightforward. That's what the meaning of a hunting ritual painting is. We know that is one of the purposes for prehistoric cave paintings. We just don't know if this particular one was only done for that reason. Again, I'll repeat it one more time. If it's a hunting ritual painting, then a shaman or people in that tribe would have painted it to guarantee a successful hunt of these animals. Well, why? I think most of you know this, but if you didn't already know any of these facts, you should be writing them. Why did they need to have a successful hunt? Because there was no farming, not this far back, and they couldn't live off berries only. We're talking about hundreds of people living in these caves, right? We know that because we have the remains of some of them. So these tribes, these groups of people had to hunt these animals to survive. Now, everybody knows that meant that at that point, there were no vegetarians. Well, people did eat berries, but that was a supplement. They had to hunt these animals for food. But what other purposes, anybody can you think of that they could have used these animals for besides food?
It could be like a spiritual thing, like they had some connection or they worshipped it in some way.
You're very good. You just jumped to the next point I was going to make about the meaning. And you're right, but I'll repeat that. But you're definitely correct. That is one of the other theories about the purpose. But I was just being more specific. And so before we get to that aspect of the other one of the other possible meanings, assuming, let's say that it might have been a hunting ritual, or probably was a hunting ritual painting, what other purposes did you think prehistoric tribes would use animals for besides food? Obviously.
materials such as
Yeah.
hides, bones for like weapons and
Yes,
structure, the hides
exactly.
for clothing and blankets,
You
etc.,
got it.
etc.
You got it. I'll repeat those for everyone if you're taking these notes now. Yeah, for things such as clothing, tools, and weapons, all three of which they needed to survive. Because I don't know about the rest of you, but southern France may have, the Riviera, but this ain't the Riviera. And it gets cold in central France, in the mountains and caves in the winter. So they needed to use the hides for clothing and, of course, the bones for weapons and tools. Okay, but I don't know who it was that said that a moment ago before the last comments about it possibly having another purpose. So this is part of the meaning. Another theory about the purpose is that this was done to show the respect and admiration that this tribe had for the strength and beauty of these animals, period. I'll say it again. This could have been a way the tribe had to paint these animals, of showing their respect and admiration for the strength and beauty of these animals. After all, they had a spiritual connection with nature. They lived so close to it, unlike so many of us urban dwellers today. So it makes sense. You know what? I don't see why the two theories are mutually exclusive, but some people think it's one or the other. So just say some historians believe it was primarily a kind of a testimony to the, admiration that this tribe had for these animals. But for survival purposes,
Oh,
much more likely they had to have they believed, they felt they could have a magic power over these animals before each hunt if they painted them on the wall before their hunters went out to go find these animals. But it could be both. It makes sense that it could be both. We don't know for sure. There's no written records, because that's the whole meaning. Okay, formal analysis. What technique for space is used? There's only one here. This horse, is that horse closer to us than that albino? That's an albino bull. That's unusual. There aren't many, but there are a few. A white, the hair of the bull is.
Was this made during like the Ice Age? That was kind of the time
Yes.
period?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was. Yeah, right. And that silly Disney movie my daughter used to watch, but it had elements of truth to it. I'm going to have to put this out there just for a second. Don't write any of this. Does everybody here know the truth about whether cavemen lived in the time of dinosaurs? I hope so. Of course they didn't. They were tens of millions of years apart, but you still see, cartoons and illustrations, and sometimes in a museum. In my Southside story, I mentioned when I was 12 years old, it ticked me off that the curators of the Natural History Museum in Chicago painted scenes in the cafeteria with cavemen fighting dinosaurs. It's like, come on, you're a museum. You're supposed to tell the truth, the facts. Yeah, of course, dinosaurs died out 65 million years ago, and the earliest examples of humanoid life forms on Earth go back about 3 million, maybe 4 million years. Okay, someone else wants admission. So okay, but looking at this composition now, let's just do 3 or 4 elements because we want to, keep moving here on each slide, maybe 5 at most tonight. What about space technique? We covered this just before the break. There's only one technique here. How do we know this horse is closer to us than the bull, or these horses are closer to us than the large brown one? What? No, stop. Okay. What technique do we see here? All right.
Layering?
Overlapping. Yeah, that is the only technique for space, because we can't tell this. You might make the case that this looks like diminishing size because this reindeer looks smaller than the others. So I've had people say that when some people have written papers about this for their first or second paper. So you could say there might be diminishing size. It's hard to tell if the artist was thinking like that, but we know they were thinking and consciously using this simplest and oldest technique for art in the human race for depicting space, and that is overlapping. So that's the only technique we're 100% sure is used on the space element. What about colors? Well, that's brown. That's an earth tone. So that's warm. But all the other colors, these are various shades of gray and black, right? Pretty much as silhouettes here, like that reindeer. So, of course, that is not warm or cool. And the albino bull, by the way, it's really a bison, but you'll have to write that. The right name of this should be the Hall of Bisons, because they're, that's the name of the animal, but they call them bulls in, I don't know why. Anyway, so the bull or bison here has a black and white, right, colors. And that is neutral, neither warm nor cool. But this reindeer is warm. So it's a mixture of neutral black and white and warm on the largest horse and the smallest reindeer, at least in this section. What about repeated shapes, rhythm, right? Oh, there's a lot of rhythm here, because of course you've got what, at least three. Some think this is a fourth horse coming up over a hill. Could be. It's hard to tell, but there's certainly at least three horses, right? Some people think this horse looks like it has wings, and others say it's just, the hind legs and the muscles jumping and tension. In any case, there are repeated shapes of, two reindeers at least three horses, right, including the large brown one. And then, of course, there's two horns on the bull or bison. There are multiple legs depicted. So there's a lot of rhythm here. The last thing I'll ask on this composition of this slide before we move to the next one, what about about whether this is dynamic or stable, mostly, or one or the other? Well, look
Mostly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mostly dynamic?
Oh, absolutely. I don't see a straight line in it. Not really. I mean, you could stretch and say the one part of this reindeer's antler here might be, maybe, but even that's at a diagonal, right? So it's almost entirely stable. Okay, I'll give you one more because this is important. Is this balanced? Well, now that's a matter of judgment, because this bull is bigger than the largest of the two reindeers, but the reindeer's missing part of its body. And it's hard to tell if maybe it was big enough that it would be roughly balanced. Anyway, the big brown horse is across the middle. And then of the three horses, the largest of the smaller horse, the largest one is in the middle. I think it's roughly balanced left to right. But then it depends on where you draw the line across the middle from top to bottom. But I think you could make the case it's roughly balanced in both directions, top to bottom, right? And because there's some empty space above each of these animals and below these. Okay, so, but that's where you can use your judgment. Okay, everybody got all the notes? Any questions? All right, let's move on to the next must know. And this one is Woman from Villendorf. And that's a city in Austria, Willendorf. Pronounced Vil like a V, but most people in America would say W with a W. Spelled Willendorf. A woman, or just woman, from Villendorf. The location, the country is usually what we have on our syllabus, and that's Austria. And the date of this, here we go again. Hi, can you hear me, Samantha, and or anyone else?
I can hear
we
you.
lost you. We lost you from the moment you were talking about balance from top to bottom.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying that last painting, the cave painting, has a rough balance to me. But if you didn't agree, if you thought because the bull looks larger and is the biggest object on the right, and that the largest reindeer over on the left wasn't balanced, big enough, to be balanced, you could just say that and you'd get credit. You just have to explain the reason why you see something the way you do. And I give you credit as long as you give me one or two specifics of facts or examples. All right, this now is the second must know. I already said the title, so I'll just say it again once. Woman from Villendorf. It's on your syllabus, right? So I think I'll just leave it for that. So you can all see the spelling there. You should have your syllabus with you, remember, at all times during each of these lectures. The country, I think I got cut off at that point, is Austria. I think you all know it's Austria, where Arnold Schwarzenegger is from. 22,000 BC, or BCE if you prefer. So this is the oldest object we're going to see in this whole semester. What is it? Well, there are theories. As always, there's no proof. Why? Because it's prehistoric. And just say Many historians, that's a safe way to say it, because no one has ever taken a poll of every historian worldwide to say, okay, 60% of them think this. So I always be safe and say many. Many historians believe that this is a fertility object, or another word for it, and it's the second definition. I'll give you the definition right now on your list of terms to know for tonight. An amulet. What is an amulet? And we're not talking about something you make with 3 eggs, not that kind. A-M-U-L-E-T, you see the word, so I shouldn't even have to spell those. They're on your list of terms. Here we go. It's a short definition. Amulet is an object that can be held in the palm of an adult person's hand, comma, could be man or woman. I'll say it again. An object that can be held in the palm of an adult person's hand, comma, which grants that person magic powers, period, which grants that person magic powers. Well, now, what magic powers could this be, or could it grant? A shaman, man or woman. In fact, today we use maybe the word more of you are familiar with is doula, right? Or midwife is the old term, right? Someone who might be present at the birth of a new child, okay? And that usually would be, the other word you could say is a priest, a prehistoric priest. That's what a shaman was in essence, right? A holy man or woman. And that person would have maybe, if this is what some historians believe, that it is a fertility object, they might have had that object present during or at some point during the pregnancy, or even early on before the mother-to-be became pregnant. And again, when the child was about to be born, to guarantee the safe and healthy birth of a child. Well, why would they have to do that? Nature takes care of that, right? Some of you know this. Can anybody guess what the estimated mortality rate was in prehistoric times for human beings?
Very low, but I have a question. Are we supposed to see something on the screen?
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Uh-oh.
We can't see.
Oh, you should have interrupted me then. I apologize. I assumed you could because I asked only one question, didn't I? I didn't ask about. Here we go. It's going to take 2 steps. So now we're getting our interruptions, but what'll happen is the same thing I did before. Here we go, and it should come back up. Okay, so I'll repeat what I said last once we get this. Now, can you see it? Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, and I'm hiding the thumbnails. Okay, so once again, if this is, well, that jumped, I didn't do that, but that's a closer view of it. I've seen this object. It's in a museum, and I think it's in Vienna, Austria. Anyway, so if it is a fertility object, that is a kind of amulet. Now, I know you heard me, right? So you got that definition, or you know, an object that could help guarantee magical powers. What powers? To, you know, guarantee, I guess, right? The healthy birth of a new child. And I asked this, but I don't know if it was clear. I think someone said low. The mortality rate is how many people die, you know, babies die at birth or shortly after. It was really high. Some historians estimate it 1 out of 3. It was certainly way higher than it tends to be today. So just say, because of the high rate of infant, the right word is infant mortality, many members of a prehistoric, oh, it's doing it again. Okay, once again now, can you guys hear me? Because that was just
yes.
pause.
Yeah.
And see the object, I hope. Yeah, okay, the point is that there was such a high rate of infant mortality that many members of prehistoric tribes, not just this tribe, but all over the world, right, of human tribes, would want the magic powers of a priest or shaman to help try and guarantee a healthy childbirth. Okay, the other theory is that it's just an image of a woman from that tribe. So the title that Stockstead gives it is woman. But if you look it up online, I know this is true. I've done it recently. Most websites and historical references will call this Venus from Villendorf, and Venus is another word for fertility object in prehistoric art, or even all the way through ancient Greece, where Venus was a Greek goddess of love, right? And female intelligence and beauty and all that. So this was meant to be, many historians believe, an amulet to guarantee safe birth of a child, but it could be just a portrait. But if it is that, then the question is the last part of the meaning now. You have to ask, wait a minute, now then if it's not a fertility object, why did this artist who carved it, right? Probably the shaman themselves, him or herself, reduce the main features like the arms to tiny little, almost barely visible details and enlarge the reproductive, right? That's why most historians think it's a fertility object, but there's no certainty about this. I believe Stockstead takes the.
Could it be like?
Yes, go ahead. What? Somebody, was it Reagan? Oh, don't tell me that. I don't have a disconnection at my end, but I hope that's. Well, if that person gets reconnected, oh no. I have to keep asking throughout. Can you guys hear me?
Sorry, that was me. Could it be like?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes. What could it be? What?
A figure of like a deity or something?
Yeah, that's the third theory. You guys are really on the ball here for how late it is and how many interruptions we've had. Yeah, that's another theory, that it is some kind of a deity. But see, that could still fit with the first theory, that it's a fertility deity, that a shaman is just trying to channel the powers from some supernatural creature that guards over women before childbirth. But yes, that's a good point. Excellent point. So that could fit, or it could just be an image of a deity. But the question remains that if it's not anything, if it has nothing to do with female fertility or human fertility, really, then why did the artist exaggerate the breasts and the vagina and then not even show any detail on the face or even the head? There's not even really, it's a round ball. With what? Yeah, I mean, that does, and the arms, look at the arms. They're practically, little tiny stubs. So no one can say for sure. But it makes sense to me that it was some combination of what your last comment there about it being a deity. It could have been an image of a fertility goddess of some kind that was used by a human priest or shaman, to guarantee healthy childbirth. Okay. And we know it's prehistoric, and you know what that definition is. So if it's on the exam, that'd be part of the meaning. I've already given you that. So let's do a formal analysis here. The actual color here looks warm, doesn't it? But it's not. That's discoloration. So I'm going to go back to this slide, because if it's on the exam, this is the one you'll see. See, that's an actual color photo, believe it or not. The other one is with lighting from the museum and age. It's probably a much older photo here, but I've seen it. When I saw it, that's what it looked like. It's kind of a cool gray color. So if it's on the exam, this is the slide you'll see. And then we have the balance. Well, it's a human figure with, small though they are, 2 arms, 2 breasts, 2 legs, everything, symmetrical. So of course it's balanced, and you have to say top to bottom if you use this as roughly the midline, the waist area. And then the rhythm is of course in the geometric decorative pattern on the head. That's all you can say. You can't say, what else is that? Some kind of geometric pattern. The 2 arms, the 2 breasts, the 2 legs. So there's plenty of rhythm, and it is completely dynamic. There are no straight lines, and the texture is the real rough texture. It's smooth now because it's been worn down by hundreds of people handling it, which it no longer, it's safely in a museum case, but it was probably passed back and forth by, historians and scientists for decades. Anyway, so it may look smooth, but the real texture was actually the rough texture of stone when it was new. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to cut one of these slides, and let me just think about this. Since Stonehenge is the one at the end and I want to take more time, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back a bit. Here we go. Yeah, these are my own slides. I'm going to remove this because there isn't a lot of meaning to we haven't got. It's on the syllabus. So if you just want to take your pen and cross this one out, that would be okay. Watchtower at Jericho. Watchtower is one word, at Jericho. I shouldn't need to spell it since you don't need to take note. Just cross that one out, Palestine. So you're going to see slides from my trip when I was a guest of the Palestinian tourism. There was such a thing. I don't know if it still exists. Tourism agency and Israeli with both. I went to both Israel and Jordan on the same trip, which most journalists are not allowed to do because the countries weren't, friendly to it when I was there. That 40 years, no, not 40, 30 years ago. Okay, but that's what this is, a restaurant in Jericho, which was the oldest city in the world, they used to think. Now we know the oldest cities are in Turkey. They're even older, but this is one of the oldest. There it is. This is Jericho. A few of you may know from the Bible, and there's a famous African-American spiritual, Joshua fought the Battle of Jericho is how it starts, which is a character from the Bible in a place that this really used to think it was just a story from the Bible. It turns out it's real. Here it is. They've excavated parts of it, both Israeli or Jewish and Arab, joint teams of archaeologists. They get along with each other because they have a common goal to excavate the history of the old sections of thousands of year old towns and cities all over the Middle East. It's one of the oldest settled parts of the world, right? So this was a city of something 20,000. That was a big city, at least 10,000. But the tower that you were going to have to take notes on, you don't need to now, is there's actually 5 of them, and there were 22, and they may find them all. But the last time I checked, it was 5. When I was there, they only had these 2, this one and the next one. These are 22 foot. You have to write this just for your own interest. 22 foot tall. Whoops, sorry, I went too far. 22 foot tall towers made out of stone, handmade, of course, without any mortar. I don't think they had mortar. This is 9,000 years old. And they would have guarded the city from these towers and the walls in between, of course. They had soldiers stationed 24 hours a day, of course. Yeah, there's another tower. So these are 2 different towers. And so I got to climb down in that ditch, and then I got panicked because it was so hot I couldn't breathe. It was 120 degrees. And there wasn't a lot of shade. But anyway, this is just one of the oldest archaeological sites in the world. There are a few olders now, but you all take notes on it. I just thought you'd find it interesting. Okay, now let's go to this one, the next must know. Okay, this is the bison, one word. And here they got the title correct, B-I-S-O-N, bison. Okay, some people mistakenly identify these animals as bulls, but the right word is bison. France, the location, the country, France, and the date, you're going to forget the little c. It means about or circa 13,000 BC or BCE. So what do we have here? We have a piece of bone carved by, again, there are theories, and we'll just usually stick to only the 2 or 3 most common theories, because sometimes there's multiple theories, and we only have time for a couple. So I'll give you the 2 leading theories. One is that this is another amulet, or object that gave a shaman or holy man or woman the power over this animal for what? Hunting purposes, perhaps. But this one, I don't think that makes sense, even though many historians think this is another, hunting ritual object, in this case, carried in the palm of the hand of a shaman who carved it and who was trying to, maybe say chanting or, some kind of prayer for guaranteeing the hunt, a successful hunt of these animals. Because one of these bison, if that tribe had managed to capture and kill one of them, they could live off that one animal for a long time, depending on how big the tribe was, at least several days, if not a few weeks. So they often did try to hunt the largest animals, and those were at that time, and it was during the Ice Age, woolly mammoths, but I don't think they existed that far south. They were in Russia for sure. They found them frozen. Some of you know, intact, frozen woolly mammoths and mastodons. But anyway, just say the largest common animal at that time in this part of France would have been these bison. But the other theory I personally believe is that it has nothing to do with the hunting ritual, that it's just an artist portraying his sympathetic or empathetic, you use either word, sympathetic with an S or empathetic with an E, view of an animal who is in discomfort. You see that there? This is either a wound or the tongue of the animal, but it looks detached from the mouth. So many historians believe that this animal is licking a wound or some other kind of injury or irritation. I have a cat.
It looks like it's grooming itself.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Wow. No one said that before. See, once again, every time I teach this course at the Santa Rosa JC, somebody comes up with something new. Excellent point. Thank you for contributing that. Yeah, that's another possibility, grooming. Yeah, something simple every day. So it could be responding even to a mild irritation without any injury, like, an itch, or like my cat, 13-year-old, 13-pound cat, female cat I have. You may see her. She walks across the front of the screen. Sometime this.
Could it possibly just be a notch?
Well, it looks deliberate. You see, I have the arrow there. It looks like it was carved into this work. And the fact that the face or head, I should say, the face and head of the bison is lined up with it, it's strong indication, not proof, but strong indication that this is some kind of focus the artist meant to have us notice. But grooming is a quite likely possibility, as is responding to an irritation, like a allergy. That's it. My poor cat has skin allergies that are horrible. They just don't go away. Constantly scratching and licking herself. So it could be that, or it could be, literally licking a wound, possibly, because it does kind of have the look of a gash. But it could also, I suppose, be possible, that last person's comment, I wouldn't say it's absolutely beyond possible, that it might just be a flaw or a nick in this piece of bone. But it kind of begs the question that then why is the face, and the mouth right at that point? So most historians would agree it's some kind of a portrait of an animal responding in some way to something on their body, whether it's grooming the body or it's licking themselves, from a irritation or a wound. We can't say. If that is true, the last part of the meaning now is, then it's not an amulet. It's an artist identifying with the feelings, right? Or you could say experience, if you prefer, of this animal. That would make it really unusual, because in the prehistoric world, there aren't that many examples we can find that are even possibly of an artist saying, oh, wow, that animal's in discomfort, or that animal is licking itself, or, I want to capture that. It's unlikely in a way, because they were all about survival. I mean, they literally struggled every day to stay alive, these tribes, of course, and they died at 35, 40, an old man was, 45 or 50 back then. So survival being as precarious as it was, there is a strong possibility that it is some kind of hunting ritual amulet, but it also could be any of those things we just discussed. Just an artist portraying an animal doing something simple, common, everyday activity, or otherwise responding to an injury or an irritation. Okay, formal analysis. It's a kind of a cool grayish color, but if you look at it, it depends on your screen. It does, in some images I've seen of it, appear to have a lightly pinkish color. So I would say stick with the cool. It's probably cool. I haven't seen this optic in real life. Okay, but it's carved line. Every line on this is carved, and it's dynamic. There are no straight lines on it. Okay, now, can you still hear me? Because I want to get to the last and most important slide of tonight, Stonehenge. But let's finish up with, is it balanced? Well, this is where people can disagree. I see it as roughly balanced if you draw a line here from left to right. But some people would say, oh, no. You'd have to consider roughly where the backbone or whatever it is here, the shoulders end. Then it would be weighted or unbalanced toward the left. You can see it either way. And to me, though, top to bottom, it is roughly balanced. You draw a line across it. And let's see, the only technique for space is overlapping. The horns overlap the head overlaps the body. Okay. And of course, it's got rhythm. The hair, the two horns, the two legs. Okay, now we're getting to the most important slide of the night. It has a high possibility, hint, hint, of being on the midterm. Okay, let me ask, can everybody hear me? It's really important. People can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so this is Stonehenge, which is one word. If it's on the exam, you're going to see this view. It's a great view. These are all commercial slides that I bought or got off the internet, but I'm going to show you my own slides in a few minutes. But first, let's talk about, we got to give the definition again. As it's on the syllabus, the location is England, and the date is 2000 BC or BCE. So what is it? It is a prehistoric stone monument, which this is the first fact about the meaning. No disputing this, right? It's absolutely certain that this is true. It's a prehistoric stone monument which consists of 3 concentric circles of stones, okay, of varying heights, period. You look at it now, and let's go to the next view, which isn't yet the must-know view or the one for the exam, but I want you to see these aerial views are really great. And you might say, wait a minute, I only see 2 concentric circles. But you're ignoring or not aware of the outer circle, of which only 3 stones remain, and they've all 3 fallen down. This one is actually not even a whole, probably like part of the stone. So these little white circles are the bases of what once were standing upright stones. So it was originally 3 concentric circles of stones, arranged, of course, in circles of varying heights. So now let's go to the view that you'll see if it's on the exam. And that's the best slide I've ever been able to find of it. Okay, so what was the purpose of it? Well, let's start with the fact that it was constructed by a tribe called the Britons, and they were a very large tribe. They ruled over, prehistoric, of course, England, what's now England, or the southern British Isles. Up in the north were the Scots, and then there were what's now parts of Great Britain, but back then they were separate tribes. And this was a culture called the Britons, just like it sounds, Britons. We know that that is the group that constructed it. How do we know? The Romans came and found it, and it was intact when they found it 2,000 years ago. They conquered England, of course. Actually, most of the British, let's just say a large part of what's now Great Britain, just say England. They conquered all of England and parts of Scotland. And they were there for 400 years, the Romans. So they had records of what they found. Now, this is prehistoric, so they didn't see any written records, who built it and why, but the culture they conquered had the oral traditions to explain how and when it was built. And now we don't have to guess when, because it can be dated. You know the word carbon dating? You'll have to write that. It's a technique scientists use to date prehistoric, or even not prehistoric, old historic sites, especially archaeological sites. Okay, but what was the purpose? That's the main part of the meaning you should have in your notes. Well, there are 3 theories. The first is that it was a giant outdoor, or don't say giant, just say an outdoor astronomical observatory. Or you could say an outdoor stone astronomical observatory. Why do people think that? Many historians do. Most actually do. Because every year, some of you know this, but if you don't, you should write this. It's a really important fact. Every year on the first day of summer, right, the longest day of the year, the beginning of summer, so just say the summer solstice, if you want to write it that way, or the first day of summer, the sun rises over this stone on the outer circle, the only one that's still actually standing of that outer circle, and shines right through these stones and onto what could have been the altar in the middle. Why does that matter? Because they had to know the seasons and the exact dates for planting. These people were not just hunters. They did hunt, but they also were farmers. They knew how to raise crops. So they needed to know the different times of the year, the exact dates of certain seasons, and they could then calculate that. So that can't be an accident. That clearly had to be designed that way. So that theory is pretty well accepted, that it is or was originally designed as an outdoor stone astronomical observatory to mark the seasons.
So it's like a
it's
giant
kind of
calendar.
like a calendar.
Yep, you could say that, except the calendar implies that every day is recorded, and this only records certain times of the year. As far as the winter solstice, I can't remember where the sun rises over it then, the opposite, the 6 months later. But the summer solstice is when they would need to know, how many weeks are left after they planted their crops. That would depend on whether they have left before they're ready to harvest. So this would tell them how long they have to wait till the harvest. Yeah, you could call it a calendar. I'd accept that. But technically speaking, it's a little bit more simple than that. Okay, but that works. Okay, and also the second theory, is that that it was used as a burial ground for the most important members of that tribe or culture of the Britons. You could say the leaders or the rulers, but just say most important members of the ancient Britons, the culture that built it. Well, now we don't have to guess. We know they did that because funerary objects, not bodies, they would long be gone. There's no way a human body would survive thousands of years in this damp English earth, right? They didn't have coffins then, not this far. The Egyptians did, but not these people. So there's no human remains, but there are, what do you call, funerary objects. No question that they were marking the death of some of the people, the leader, you can say, are most important members of their tribe. So again, I'll repeat that. Another purpose it likely was built for, and now historians have verified it's true, that they used at least some parts of this, certainly the outer circle for sure of stones, as a burial site for leading members of that tribe. And then the third theory is that it was an outdoor religious ritual site for conducting all kinds of, in warm weather, of course, religious rituals for that tribe. But you know what? Most historians now think all three are true. And there's no reason they couldn't all be true. So the majority of the historians have decided that it was used at different times for all three of those purposes. Now, how was it built? That's the last part of the meaning here. Well, I don't want to rush through this. The theories abound. No one knows is the point. This one, there's no evidence to prove. But one theory, they didn't have the wheel. Okay, let's start with that. I didn't say that, but I should have not assumed that you all knew that. This prehistoric tribe, they didn't have the wheel. No Flintstones cars here or anything like that. They had to drag these stones, or you could just say transport them. We don't know how they got them here, from over 200 miles away. In fact, it was 220 miles away. The nearest stone quarry with this kind of stone is in Wales, which is way off in the west corner of the British Isles. So you don't have to write that much detail. Just say they had to get these stones, transport them from over 200, or if you want to be exact, about 220 miles away. No one knows how they did it. Did they use logs, roll them over logs? That would be a very slow, cumbersome process, but I suppose it's possible. That's one theory. Another is that they floated them on the nearest river. Yeah, but the nearest river ends 20 miles from here. So they still had to get them from the river. So maybe they did a combination of, floating them down a nearby river and then dragging them here over logs, or even perhaps just over the ground. We don't know. And then there are other theories. Don't write these. Merlin used his wand and moved the stones. Believe it or not, there are books that actually, or aliens came down, or ancient Egyptians came here and showed them how to move the stones, like they could, of course, with wheels and carts in ancient Egypt. None of the above have any evidence. Obviously, they're just silly theories. But there are people that write books about these things. So just say the leading theories, or just that. We don't know, but probably it was a combination of floating them on a river and then, somehow dragging them across 20 or more miles to this site. And they don't know how they erected them so straight upright. The fact
that robot voice is coming back.
Okay, it's thank you for always giving me a heads up. Can people hear me now normally?
Yes. We
Yes.
lost you from when you said it could have been aliens.
Yeah, I was just being silly. But I've seen books on this, or the Egyptians. Now, that was a serious theory for a while, but there's a big hole in that theory. You don't have to write this. It's just, how would the Egyptians have gotten this far away? They didn't try to make long voyages. That wasn't what their culture was about. Up and down the Nile, yes, and around the Mediterranean, part of the Mediterranean. And also, they kept records. They wrote about every major event in the history of ancient Egypt. We'll talk about that one. So why wouldn't they, if one of their boats had gone 2,000 miles away and discovered this, tribe and helped them build something this important, they would have recorded it. So
didn't the Egyptians have they had cocaine in one of the tombs, right? So that meant they traveled at least to people that had traveled that far.
They traded with, yeah, you're right. That's true. They traded with Asia. The Romans traded like nobody's business with it. They knew each other, the leaders and rulers of ancient China. We'll talk about that in ancient Rome. To me, that fascinates me. There were plenty of examples of trade between Asia and North Africa. Yeah, in the Mediterranean, all the way back to the Egyptians. That's a good point you raised. In any case, those are theories. I think the leading theory. Sorry, go ahead. That sounded robotic. You want to repeat that? Here we go again. All right. Now I'm guessing. Can you guys hear me? All right. I'm going to do this again because it's important. We'll do another screen share and hopefully that takes care of it.
You're starting to cut out again.
Well, again, I have to ask. Can people hear me now? If not, I'll do that again.
We can hear you now.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll wrap this up pretty quickly, but I want you to see just 10 minutes. Let's keep it to that of my own slides at the end for those who are interested. Okay, so the last thing to say about this is that if you're wondering why so many stones are missing, it's a combination of farmers from the Middle Ages on starting to steal the stones to build their farm walls on their farms. Yeah. And the other is perhaps some souvenir hunters, but that's unlikely. People were carving pieces of stone off this, and they stopped tourists from getting close to this anymore. So let's wrap up the must know part, the notes section of this segment with the features. Now here I'm going to give you most of the elements. Space, well, it's obviously 3 concentric circles of stones, but what are the heights? Remember, the dimensions are really important here. The tallest
we can't see your screen.
Oh, not that again. Yeah, thank you for telling me. Boy, this is one of those. At least we got through to the last one, and I don't want you to miss this. So let's just take our time to, let's hope it should come back. There, okay. Hopefully.
Yes, I can see it.
Thank you. Yeah. Sometimes it's an individual, like 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 people, and everyone else can see it. But even that, I don't want to leave anyone out. Okay, so let's do the formal analysis. The tallest stones are ones in the middle, or 22 feet high. And if you ever saw Spinal Tap, anybody, the movie where they put there's a scene in that movie about some made up, band, rock and roll band that, of course, punk rock, whatever you want to call it, heavy metal band. Anyway, these are 22 feet, not 22 inches tall, 22 feet. That's the space. Now we're talking about space, so you got to write this down, because how else do you define space in a structure? This is architecture. It may not be a building, but it's architecture. But the dimension. So 22 foot high, right, in the middle, and then these are 18 feet high, the middle circle. We don't really have a height that you need to write for the outer circle, because hardly any of them are standing. And then, I almost forgot the last definition, really important. Sorry, the last definition is monoliths and lentils. And that's on your list of terms, and it's not a long definition. Monolith and lentil, here we go. And I'll repeat it, say it once and repeat it. It's the technique used for constructing Stonehenge, comma, the technique for constructing Stonehenge, comma. in which the upright stones are monoliths. The upright stones are monoliths, and the horizontal stones are lentils. There's no other way to say it. It's the oldest method. Another way you could look at it is it's the oldest method of architectural design or construction known to the human race. It goes back even earlier than this. There are some sites in England that are larger than this, prehistoric stone monuments, and older, but this is the most famous one that I think everybody's heard of. So once again, everybody got that definition? Need me to repeat it, anybody, of monoliths and lentils? Uh-oh. Can you guys hear me?
Is it spelled like lentil? Like the
It's on your
food?
handout. Yeah, not like the soup, no. Good point. Almost. L-I-N-T-E-L. And monolith is, one word, monolith with a T-H. Okay, I'll repeat the definition. It's monolith and lentil is the construction method used at Stonehenge in which the upright stones are called monoliths and the horizontal stones are called lentils. It's, if you think about it, it's the simplest way to construct any kind of architecture. At least that has doorways or windows or openings. This has openings. There's no doors. They never had doors in here. But you could make a doorway this way, right? You could build the walls of a building and put the windows. It's the most basic concept of how to construct architecture known. It's the oldest and simplest known to the human race. Every culture has used this method that's built permanent structures. Now, nomadic cultures don't have architecture. Of course, they don't need it. But any other urban or settled culture, prehistoric or later, used this method. Okay, let's wrap it up. These are cool gray colors. There's no warm color here. It's rough, real texture of stone. That's the only texture. The rhythm is obvious. Both the circles themselves and each set of stones are the same, and they've worn down, of course, the same shapes. The lentils, right? And it is dynamic in the circular arrangement, but stable on each stone, right? Because again, even though the edges are worn into kind of slightly rounded, that's not how they were originally. Look how this out. Let's go up close. You can see. So you see that? That's right angles. So originally, all of the stones were like that. So just say that it's a combination of dynamic shape, dynamic arrangement to the circles and stable on each individual stone. The largest masses, pretty easy. The inner circle of stones, I just said they were 22 feet high. And then the middle circle was 18 feet high. And then the smallest mass would have been the outer row, because those aren't more than about 8 feet tall. You don't have to say 8 feet, but I gave you the dimensions for the two inner circles. That's all you need to know in terms of space. Okay, and balance, when it was new, it was completely symmetrical. So originally it was completely balanced, of course. And is there any modeling? Here it's the sunlight from the shadow, from the sunlight. There's no modeling technique here. Okay, I think that's good enough. Let's go to my own slides of this, and here they are. When I was there, you could walk up close to this, and you'll see the evidence of that. Actually, I meant to start with this slide, but this is the way the slide librarian arranged these slides for me from a slide tray. Yes, a Kodak carousel slide tray. I took these slides with a 35 millimeter film camera. There's no other kind of camera when I was there. This is from the 80s, yeah. But it's fascinating to walk up to it across this plane. And when I finish, I'm going to tell you what not to do if you don't want to get arrested when you're there, which I did do and almost got arrested. But let's just see these views very quickly. Look at how some of these are worn down, but even so, it's amazing that they hoisted these 18 feet above the ground and these 22 feet, and they're still there 4,000 years later. No one has done any repairs or any supporting of these stones. And there's one of the tourists back when you could walk. You can see how big they are, right? And look at how neatly carved, sharp edges there are on some of these lentils. There they are on the top of the tallest row of stones. And then some of them are worn down here. Some people think this looks like a face, right? An eye, a nose, and a mouth. That's just a coincidence. And then here's another. This actually was done, I think, by the slide librarian. I think she inserted this from her trip there. But look how big they are. You can see the crowd of people back when you could go. There's a rope around it now. Not a rope, but Yeah, a rope fence, whatever. It's about 6 feet high and they're guards. You can't get close. But these are my slides. And look at the moss and lichen. They've cleaned, that's the only thing they've done. They've wiped off the moss and the lichen from these stones so that they don't deteriorate, because that was deteriorating these stones. And some purists, foolish as they were, not very scientific, said, oh, leave it, it's nature. Yeah, but the trouble is it'll destroy these within a few decades. So the National Trust, they call it, the Historic Preservation Group in the British government, which maintains all their thousands of historic sites, you know how historic sites all over Great Britain are. They figured out that you have
holes
to get
in
rid
there
of
intentional?
Yeah, that's what they did, drill holes here. Good point. Again, I didn't mention this. You don't have to write this now because it's past the must know. But yes, you're right. They somehow knew how to drill holes. We know they did here to hold these stones in place, because there's a piece of stone that sticks up. I think you'll see it in one of my other slides. I can't remember these. I only show these about once a year. That holds them in place. Maybe you can almost tell there. But the holes in the sides of the stones that you saw in that last slide or 2 slides back, I'm not sure if they were done by the Britons or not. But we know that they used, it's like a mortise and tenon. If you've done carpentry, I haven't, but I have friends who do. And my wife does. She's quite well too. She grew up on a farm with nobody nearby, so they had to make everything themselves, their own house from scratch and all their furniture. So she learned how to do carpentry. Yeah, so they used that method, you know, that wooden furniture does with joints. But this is 4,000 years ago, and they didn't have power tools. Or even, we don't know if they had any kind of primitive saws. Somehow they managed to do that. I think most of the holes are just from the aging on the sides that you see there. Yeah, and then look how nicely and neatly, I tried to find those words. These are lined up with each other very carefully. These people were remarkably well disciplined. Here we go. There it is. I knew it. See that? That would have been part of the larger stone that fell down. Not sure which one, this one or that one. This would have been the tallest. This actually is 25 feet. And that's how they would have secured the lintel that is now on the ground somewhere down here. That's what they think the altar was, beneath these 2 tallest stones right in the middle. So I didn't mention that because I didn't want to get too far afield when we were looking at the slides from the, syllabus. Okay, and then I'm going to tell you what not to do. Well, when I was there the first time, I did not have a camera, and it was my last 24 hours in my first trip to Europe, and I was hitchhiking and living in my sleeping bag all over Europe. I did that for 3 months. And when I got to Stonehenge, my last major site, I wanted to watch the sun rise over the stones of Stonehenge. I had studied it in a class much like this at UC Berkeley. So I hid in the ditch, in the outer ditch, and I will show you what that is like again if it's not obvious. And I found the place closest to, there we go, to that heel stone. And I hid, there it is, see that ditch? And I hid out down here in my sleeping bag. No one saw me. They locked the gates, because there were gates even back then. You could walk around, but it was protected, of course, from vandals and things, even that far back. So in the morning, I thought, oh, the sun will rise and it'll wake me up. I didn't have an alarm clock. I figured the sun in my face will wake me up. Nope, that's not what happened. I was awoken by a whistle, a loud whistle in my face, and a guy standing right over my sleeping bag, about 2 feet above my face, a British beefeater. Do you know what those guys are? They're the bouncers of the British Isles. Big, strapping guy, about 6'4" or something, obviously very muscular, and with a uniform. It was, in essence, a kind of policeman. He was opening up the Stonehenge site before tourists were allowed, and he said, "What the bleeding," he used swear words I can't repeat in the British slang, "are you doing here?" And I said, I just wanted to watch the sunrise. I didn't take anything. You can check my backpack. I had, of course, a backpack on. And he did. And when he saw I hadn't stolen anything, he said, "What made you think it was okay to stay here?" I said, "Yeah, I didn't think that. I didn't think." And he goes, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm a student at UC Berkeley." He went, "Berkeley? That's a university. You should know better." I'll tell you what. Then he dragged me by the elbow all the way across, this is a long way, to the gate. And he put me in right behind where the gate had a sign, a painted metal sign that was for all people thinking of doing what I did. And I should have read it before I did that, but I didn't see it when I came in. It was right near closing time. It said, no trespassing or staying overnight. Violators will be punished with a fine of either £1,500, that was $3,000 back then. That was more money than I'd spent on my whole trip, or 6 months in jail. So I learned my lesson, and he swore me to tell every student I ever met or taught after that, just don't do what I did if you go to Stonehenge. Don't try to hide out. Okay, well, thank you all. That's why they put the fence up. One of my students said, see, it was your fault. Well, the fence went up in the 80s, and that was in the early 70s. Just to give you an idea of how long ago that was, Paul McCartney had just broken up with the Beatles and released his first album. That's how far back it was, which was on the radio everywhere when I hitchhiked and got picked up by people. It's not unsafe to hitchhike in some parts of Europe, I will tell you that, but you need to do the research. It's probably not a good idea. Unless you're with 2 or 3 of you, together, then it's usually safe. I wouldn't hitchhike across the U.S. I did that summer to get to New York, to get a cheap flight to London. Now I wouldn't hitchhike across the U.S. It's probably not safe, sadly. But back then, those things were not as dangerous. And it was just something I felt I needed to try. I never did get to see the sunrise because I slept through it and I was awoken by something other than nature. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed that, learned something. Any questions anyone has, I will stick around. Anybody have any questions about anything we talked about tonight or anything else relating to this class?
Thank you.
Did you clarify what black and white / neutral colors are?
Yeah, well, that's it. Black and white together. If there's no warm colors, like, reds and yellows and things, then that's considered neutral. Neither cool nor cold. Yeah.
So I answered my own question. Thank you.
Okay. Any other? Yeah, sure. That's what I'm here for. Any other questions about anything we covered or things like that? The general topics. Don't forget, if you didn't give me your mini bio, I should have said this again. I said it already at the start, but some people joined late. I really need it before the next class, because that's how I'm going to verify who is and isn't still in the class, or who might have decided to drop, because some students just forget and they get an F on their transcripts, and it's an unpleasant surprise if they didn't remember to drop them.
Could we just send it as an email, like not have it as a separate document?
You could do it as a regular email. I'm glad you said that. In some ways, it's even easier for me to open, because some PDF files on my laptop I can't open. I have to go through like a 4-step process. But on my PC, which is not my house, that's why I tell people that, because if you send me something you want me to read that is a PDF, then give me a little more than 24 hours, because my studio has no heat and it's damp and cold out there. So I don't go out there after dark, and a couple days a week I'm busy with my daughter or something. So give me 48 hours to respond if you're sending me a document. But if you're sending me your bio, you can send it as just in the body of your email. That's perfectly fine.
Could you read the names of people that you've gotten that? Because I sent mine and I didn't hear you say it.
Well, give me your name and I will rather read the whole list, because it's like 30.
Reagan O'Rourke?
O'Rourke. I think I saw it. Yes. Oh, I read your name. Didn't I? Have you marked off? Thank you for catching
awesome.
me. You're good. You're good. No problem.
Did you receive mine?
Okay, give me your names.
Elizabeth Martinez, but I think I put it under Julie Martinez.
I have Elizabeth Garcia Martinez. Yes.
Yes.
They also have Alondra Gonzalez Martinez. Anybody else? I thought I heard another person.
Yeah, can you check mine too while you got the list up?
What's your last name? You're fading out.
The only reason I ask is because because that's what I had received emails from you from.
Okay.
I sent it to the email that you sent out other stuff on, not the AOL email. That's why I wanted to double check.
Then resend it to AOL, but I might have gotten it. I checked both today, but it was like 4:30. What's your last name?
McSmith.
Yes, I have you down. What I didn't get was the other Samantha, and I forgot her name now. I told her, she heard me say it. I think she's probably already signed off.
I think it was Samantha Epistock.
Yes.
Or Epitas.
Yeah, I didn't see your name on the roster. I saw your mini bio. So it must be that you're an ad, right? Didn't you tell me that already? So just, you know, don't worry. I'm going to write it down. Just send me an email to remind me, to be safe, that please remember to add my name to the roster. Well, I don't have to. I just have to print it out again. I didn't have time to print it out.
I don't think this information's relevant to me.
Yes, that's true. So any more questions that anyone individually needs answered?
Yes.
Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
My name, please, if you got it.
Okay, well, you got to give me...
Yasmin Guerra, Guera.
Yes, I have it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Yeah,
did you receive mine?
What's your last name?
Varela, Varela.
I think I remember that one. Oh, is it Alexia?
Yes.
Okay, I think I couldn't open it, or else it was on one of the other. I mean, I actually had only 2 emails on my syllabus. Would you resend it just for safety's sake? And I will confirm by email with you that I entered it. And that's to Mark W at AOL. Just resend it, even if you sent it before. I probably did have it, but I didn't mark it because either I couldn't open it or it was on the other email. So just for your sake, to be safe, okay? Resend it. And then we're all set, and you'll get a confirmation tomorrow, not today. It's getting late. But any other questions? I'm still here.
I actually sent you an email already, but what does have to be inside the mini bio?
Sure. I don't mind. Yeah, you'll see it on your email, but I'll go ahead and tell you now. 3 things, very simple. You can just keep it a half a page. Where have you lived and worked in your life, outside California, of course? A, and B, what is your work and educational experience? What kind of jobs, not every job, but the more important ones, or what kind of educational experience have you had? And last is, what is your experience with art? Whether you have created art, or you studied it, or you've traveled and seen art. Your experiences with art. We keep that to like a few sentences each. So that should end up being maybe 3 short paragraphs, about a half a page. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. You're welcome. Anybody else?
I kind of got booted out for a little bit. I think it was my own personal internet connection.
Yeah. Well, you do know, right? If you didn't, now you do, that you can see all of the lectures at the end of the week. On Friday of each week, I will post them no later than 7 p.m. Sometimes it takes a while for them to upload to YouTube.
I just wanted to know if I missed any major chunks between the Guggenheim Museum and the Hall of Bulls.
No, that was the break, and I just pulled up slides, and then we started getting more disconnects after the break. So you probably had one of those early ones. So did you get the notes on the Hall of Bulls?
Yeah, they're not super extensive, but I'll probably watch the video. That part of the recording.
It's on YouTube under Mark Wilson's SRJC Art History Lectures, and you'll see it there by the week. And then also you did get the notes. Well, it doesn't matter. You can see these too. If you didn't get all of the notes on the Guggenheim.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss any, like a whole section.
No, you didn't. Yeah. So
thank you.
You'll be fine. You're welcome. Anybody else?
Can you check for Solis Perez?
Oh yeah, you mean for the mini bio thing you're talking about? Spell your last name?
Solisperez.
Oh no, I didn't see it. So resend it. You might have sent it, and I might just have missed it, but I doubt it. I mean, it could be, because I was doing a lot of different things today to prepare. So would you resend it just to be safe to Mark W at AOL, and I will confirm by email with you once I've opened it. Okay, it's Mark W at AOL. All right, that way you'll be 100% sure that I get it. Anybody else?
Just to clarify, do you want us to send the rest of our written work just as an email, or should we go ahead and send it as a PDF anyway?
PDF for every assignment, and I'll remind you of that and give you instructions even, and make sure by email and on the lectures in the Zoom sessions. Yeah, but these mini bios you can do either way. But no, all assignments is really important. I do need them done as PDFs because that's the rule the college said. Plus, it makes it easier for me or the readers that I work with to open them on any computer. So yes,
Okay.
they do need to be PDFs. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Anybody else?
Can you check for Gloria Jimenez? I don't think I heard it.
Yeah, that sounds familiar, but I will check. Gloria, yes, I have you. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I think we got through the night with a minimal, relatively minor number of interruptions. Thank you all for your patience. I really appreciate it, and your perseverance. I think you'll see that it'll be worthwhile as we go. Hopefully, you learned something and enjoyed what we saw, and we'll see some more next week when we look at ancient Middle Eastern art, Babylonian art. Okay, everyone, have a good night. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah, have a good week.
Hi, Professor, can you check my name?
Oh, he just got me before I signed off. What's your last name?
Sabharwal, Sabharwal. Sabharwal.
Yes, Singh? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Singh.
Yes. Oh, yes, I got you. Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, you said you never went to the Taj Mahal, but you've been all around India, I think is what.
No, I've never been around India. I'm from a state called Punjab and never been to another state. Just
that part. Yeah.
Just to Delhi.
Well, if you have any observations, you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. When we get to Art of India, which is really interesting for me, that's one of the few countries in the world I've wanted to go to that I haven't yet made it to. In any case, if there's anything you know or interested to say or add to my lecture about Indian art, feel free to do that. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. Okay, how are we doing? Is there, because I should sign off soon, but I still can answer a question if there's any urgent last question.
Yeah, I just have one question. So there are books we should buy, and
that's in your course policies that I sent to everybody the first week, and I went over them at the lecture. And they are printed out. Rather, I can tell you the names of the two books, but you want to see it in writing, right? You should already have them. Stockstad's History of Art, Volume 1, and Gill, Gill. The Critic, the title of hers is The Critic Sees. Those are the two books. And the reading assignments are on the syllabus, so you should have those written down. But if you don't, then if you didn't get those handouts, did you get those handouts?
No, I got the handouts. I just have a question. Like, what are the assignments like each week or?
No, nothing each week except to make sure you attend. You're doing just what you need to. Attend the classes, take notes, ask questions as they come up, and then there will be 2 papers, but the first one's not due till the 6th week. Those are all on the syllabus. Everything that you need to do is written out on the syllabus. So just read that. But you don't have a quizzes or anything else. You just have 2 papers and 2 exams. Okay?
Thank you so much, Professor.
You're welcome. Okay. That's it. All right.